approximately how many ready set pieces do you have at this point, polished arrangements that you've worked on over the years?
Together.
Yeah, and you don't have to give me like an exact number, but after that point, what percentage of those do you feel ready to offer at any particular point?
All right, so let's split the question in two parts. One is how many pieces we can play. Like if we know a standard and we sit down and I'm sitting on the left side and I play the accompaniment and Stephanie plays the melody and then we both improvise and then we do a simple ending, then you can easily put together a few hours of repertoire. But of course, when we do a concert, we try to offer something that has been more interesting on our side, that we have worked out a little more, because we think that also for the use of the four hands, it's fun to have a little jam session, but it's also interesting to hear. Like if you hear a piece of classical music for four hands, you realize how much time the composer spent in the voicings and in the form, and we are sort of ambitious in presenting material that has a little work behind. So those pieces, I would say maybe we have 2 or 3 hours of arranged repertoire that we could play quite decently without rehearsing, I think. Yes.
Paolo and Stephanie, are you, your arrangements are very intricate. Are you able to practice your individual parts separately, or do you need to be both at the piano at the same time to have any meaningful sort of practice for memorization purposes?
We can practice separately, and sometimes we're forced to, because just, we can't always be doing everything at the same time throughout the day, and so in certain things he memorizes like that, like no problem. I have a harder time memorizing certain things, and vice versa. So I work on the parts that I know are going to be tricky for me, and I can even just work on that, on the plane, even just thinking, what's that sort of special part there that I have to work on.
The truth is that I do most of the arranging and I give all the difficult parts to her so that I can relax.
That's what you were doing. That's it.
But yes, we do practice separately, and also there are different parts. There is always a part with improvisation in the arrangement, and then it's easier to do it together. But some endings or some modulations, we can even practice without being at the piano. Of course, it's like you have you think through it and try to remember, okay, that's the last A, it's in another key, and then there is that modulation, how does it go? Okay, I have it. So that we can do separately.
Some things we do have to practice together, and those are mostly just, choreography, like how is he going to start playing a solo if I'm in that spot? So, how can we make these transitions as smooth as possible?
And then there are some parts that are actually not very comfortable to perform, and that you have to practice together, because otherwise it doesn't come out well at all.
I would imagine there's probably a few things in Victory Stride that are like that. That thing's amazing. But
that's a little over the
Question here.
Okay, we've heard your evolution from classical to jazz. I want to ask a question about going back. Some of us have music interests all over the map. I want to know, how far away do we have to go to hide if I'm going to ask you to play Rachmaninoff?
Well, first of all, I would not be able to right now, and I have much respect of classical pianists. I know I have many friends that are very accomplished classical pianists, and it's another world. And also I think my teacher was very strict and very I don't know, demanding, very demanding. So before performing something, she was pushing me to the limit, to every little detail, every phrase, every color of notes. And so right now I don't have the time to, even if I would like to, let's say, study a couple of nocturnes by Chopin.
You don't take it lightly, classical music. That's
and so, well, I think if I would be asked to play, and we have been asked to include some classical pieces, we always slip away and and try to convince that we have other things that can sort of refer to classical music. But it's just you can't do everything.
I see, like, when you know, we have more time in the future, I would love to just be able to, like, sit down and read through some Bach or Chopin or Beethoven for myself, and, you know, but there's just not the luxury of that right now.
And we have, of course, when we started playing in four hands, and as a jazz musician, the first thing you do, you take recordings of other masters, and of the masters of that music, and you try to get inspired. Now you sit down in four hands and you try to think which recordings of that repertoire have been made in four hands, and there's not much. So we decided to try to go in our own direction and do things that we are happy with. And of course, on the other side, there is a lot of four hands classical music, and so we both agreed, like, we should try to read this music, this composition of Brahms or Schubert or Schumann or Beethoven in four hands, because those are perfect. You can't change one note and make it better. And so the knowledge, the level of knowledge of these composers regarding every possible detail is at the maximum level possible. So just by analyzing and reading through them, you can learn some things, how to make the four hands sound good, sound better on one keyboard. But on the other side, we didn't have much time to do that either. So we have a bunch of books at home, and they are there, almost untouched. And when we go home for one day before leaving again, we have to do the laundry, we have to go to the post office, we have to go through the mail, and get things ready for the next trip.
Tell us about how you're able to, tell us some of the things you do while you're keeping your marriage fresh and you're busy duetting, and also you're keeping your duetting fresh while you're busy in your marriage.
What was the question?
How are you still together? That's
I'm Italian, I should talk more, so I answer this. So, the last years have been sort of overwhelming in terms of things to do, things that it's not interesting, but just to think about it. I moved to the US. I needed to apply for the green card. Stephanie needed the same sort of procedure for Italy because we spent a lot of time there. We had to find a home. We had to move into the home. Stephanie's mom moved into another home, so we helped her to, and plus a series of other bureaucratical things that sort of invaded completely our spare time. It was a challenging period, but I think we finally feel now that we can take time to read, take time to go for walks, take time to have some vacations together, and those moments are very important. Because this profession is very exciting, but it's also very demanding. You have to be always in good shape, in good spirit, full of energy to give to the others. And it's the whole meaning of performing is to give to the others, and you need to be strong yourself, so you need to recharge when you have time, and this is what we are trying to accomplish in the next years, and this I think partially answers the question or not.
Well, yeah, no, I'll add something. So I'm not going to say that so performing for you is the best part of this job. There are other aspects that are less pleasant, and those are, you know, making quick turnarounds in the middle of the night when you come home late and your flight's been delayed, and you're thinking of how can I pack for the next 3 weeks and remember all the things that I said I was going to give to that person that I'll see in 2 weeks, and, you know, things, you know, just logistics, and so it can be stressful. The good thing is being together in the same boat, doing the same profession, we understand what the other person is going through.
In the same boat, you mean?
Yeah.
On the same ship, yeah.
I was distracted.
So we give each other a lot of space, and I think it's actually an advantage to know what he's going through, and same for him, for me, because you're under some pretty stressful, tight time frames, and I mean, like all our musician friends know, that's what this lifestyle is like. And so to have someone who understands that, and, you know, or maybe he's practicing, I'm not going to interrupt him while he's practicing. That's incredibly valuable time for both of us. You know, that's, you just don't. So we kind of know how to work around each other, and even though we're on the same schedule, we do have different sort of responsibilities, I guess. So.
And I think also being living together, working together, doing everything together, you need to understand the other person and adjust to what you think that it's best for the other person too. We have different ways of working. For example, I'm not very methodical, to say that, methodical. So I'd rather wake up one day and work for 16 hours without eating on a new arrangement than like doing 2 hours a day for the next 8 days. Stephanie is better organized, and she can deal with more things at the same time. And I think they say that women are more multitasking than... Yeah, it's something...
That's absolutely true, yes.
It's and so I'm not like that, and but on the other side, I get completely immersed in something. And if I'm working on an arrangement and I ask Stephanie to stay next to and so that we can try things, I know that I can't ask her to stay there for 16 hours. I will get strangled after that. So I have to avoid it. And
this goes back to that happy wife, happy life thing.
That's right. That's right. So we learned. We had the previous. We worked previous before we started the duo together. I was mostly a band pianist, and I had some solo concerts, and I belonged to different bands. And Stephanie had a lot of solo performances, and so we had very different schedules. And then when we got together, of course, we tried to make it and still try to learn from our needs and our favorite ways to work, so that even the most challenging moment of practicing at 3 a.m. on the keyboard becomes nice, and we are both happy to do it, and the things are going pretty well. So.
So yeah, okay. Actually, you've almost begun to address sort of my question. and it's kind of two-part. Did you meet musically or independently from that? And from there, how did you decide to, rather than being two independent pianists, that you really wanted to present a lot as piano forehands rather than solo pianists?
So we met on the stage at a piano festival in Switzerland in 2008, and there were 6 pianists, and it was a sort of piano summit, and there weren't all the combinations, but there were a lot of the, duets together, and so we hadn't played together before, but we had 2 songs that we had to perform together, and so that's how we met, and slowly, after a few years, we became friends. The problem was we were 4,000 miles apart.
Right.
So there really wasn't a way to see each other, and I was not playing in Europe. He was not playing in the US at that time. And so we were saying, well, maybe we'll see each other in 6 months. And so we were Skyping and then thinking about, how could we see each other and maybe combine it with a couple of concerts together? And how would that make sense for someone at a jazz club to want to hire us together, not just do a solo concert? And so it started out with us playing 2 sets. I played a solo set, he played a solo set, and then we played 2 songs together at the end. And then those 2 songs, those 2 duets became more interesting. And we were like, you can meet someone that you like, you can meet a musician that you like talking with, but maybe you don't like playing together. It's not, it's a weird chemistry thing that it can happen or not. And for us, we played together like, oh, that's nice. And so we kind of capitalized on that and kept going with more duets and tried to, just were more interested in making them a little bit more complex. And so that part grew, so.
Of course, it was also a little challenging at the beginning because a four-hands piano duo is not very common in this style of music, and so while already as a solo pianist, for example, Stephanie plays stride piano, and that's already a very full way of playing the piano. You don't need another person. Actually, if there is another person, you play less somehow. So we were aware of that and tried to keep also the individual projects going. We were sort of improvising on this. Since we were having fun playing together, we put more emphasis for a few years on our duo, because we realized pretty soon that if we want to get invited together, we have to offer something special. We can't just sit down and play like if it's an improvised thing, because that could be done with any other partner, and it's fun to do it, but if you want to make something special, you have to work on it. So we really put the accelerator on the duo, and it took a few years to arrive to reach the point where we feel that when we go on stage and perform what we have worked on, we feel proud of it. And for a musician, it's important to be happy to go on stage and play something that you have worked on. And the people, the audience, you see that we are happy of what we are doing and proud, and then you appreciate that. So yeah, we had maybe 3 or 4 years where we really were basically almost only working on that. And just recently, we about 1.5 years ago, we started. We decided to record 2 individual CDs. Stephanie decided to record a CD on original composition of James P. Johnson, because it's her idol somehow, musical idol, and I decided on Errol Garner because he's my musical idol, and so we had this individual project to work, and they will come out, and we are happy to do that. We